my cursor. Oh, by the way, everyone, I've got a new laptop. It's like, okay, excellent. Lovely to have you here. Welcome to the Business Women Australia online monthly virtual connect, where we've got members and some guests here. It's great. Great to have you here. I'm Lynn Hawkins. I am the National Director and the founder of Business Women Australia, and I've got on the call some amazing leaders in our community as well. But before I actually go on to, here we go, that's what I'm looking for. Before I go on, I'd like to just acknowledge this beautiful country in which we're all meeting around the nation. I've just moved from Boorloo, from Perth, and I'm living now in the very plentiful water area of the land and sea people of the Noongar Nation in Manjibudaba, and I'd like to pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging all around the nation, and celebrate our Indigenous sisters in business. Thank you to our sponsors. We have, of course, some important sponsors on the call, actually. We've got My Vida, who provides us with a fabulous space for our monthly courageous conversations and our long table lunches in Inglewood at the Inspiration Space. Thanks, Vida. Kathy McKenzie, who's on the call, who's Fire Up Coaching. I did my accredited coaching Cert 4 and a diploma. I think it's Cert 4, was it?
Yeah,
and a diploma.
So you're nested, so you end up with 2, Lynn.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I met Kerry through that, who's also on our advisory board, and I'll be handing over some things to Kerry. We've also got on the call Stacey Payritz from LG Accounting Solution, who are our national sponsors. They do all our accounting and bookkeeping for us. And if it wasn't honestly for Stacey and the team at LGAS, we would not survive. I was tipping money in to keep it going last year, and Stacey agreed to, a year before last, and Stacey agreed to do our accounting and bookkeeping for us, and it just is a game changer. So thank you. And thank you to 3 Drops and Intact. In 3 Drops is our favourite wine and olive oil. Joe Bradbury's not with us today, but they're always great at helping us run some pretty cool events. And Intact is actually Jessica Schubert's business, and she's been a shareholder inside Business Women Australia and helped us get up and running right from the word go. So big kudos to Jessica and the team at Intact. So what are we all about? Well, we're actually about this connection and the beautiful mix that brings together entrepreneurs and directors and executives, advisors, managers, professionals, consultants, you name it. We've got incredible women that are in this community, and we come from all walks of life and all backgrounds. We're not like-minded, but we have shared values, and we're very much focused on leading self as well as leading in our communities and in our workplaces around the concept of always looking to improve. So there's a group of us, I think, that come together nationally that are drawn by this value of lifelong learning and personal growth. And that really is what seems to be the thing that separates what we're about, because we do a lot of co-design and a lot of experimenting. Kerry's been running the Confident Facilitators course that we've been doing, and we were looking at, well, how do we use this community to practice some of the new digital tools, for example, in facilitating, because we can do that, right? Because this is our community, we can do it. And we've got, amazing amounts of women around us who are really supportive of learning and want to learn too. So that really is the sort of environment that we've created around creating opportunities for women. We have a national podcast that our leading members are featured on. We've got our chair of the advisory board, Wendy Harper, who's going to share her story on the 13th of September, and the cause that's really driving every ounce of her being at the moment in supporting the women of Vanuatu. Wendy's a great believer, and we see this actually in a lot of communities, is that you help the women and the women help the community. It has that domino effect. And with her travels to Vanuatu and the communities that she's supporting over there, she's going to share with us that story and what we can do to support it. And the 15th of October, we've got Tracy Cooper, who's one of our leading members in Queensland. She's a change consultant. She's a specialist in change. and she sees change as a business as usual rather than a project. So we're looking at, well, if in these dynamic times, where do we start and how do we embrace change, and do it effectively, with taking our team on the journey and involved in co-creating the changes that are needed. Sunshine Coast, thank you so much, Kathy, for hosting our second breakfast there. They're very popular.
You are welcome. I don't know how many breakfasts for the next one. Is there a few enrolled?
Yeah, we have. I think we've got 10 already. So I think that's how you like it, that kind of small, intimate group where you can have those courageous conversations with each other. And
that's fabulous. Awesome.
Yeah, that's all good for the 7th of October. And on that same day, I think later in the day, we're kicking off our first Change Leaders Cafe conversation. So every first Tuesday of every month, Wendy Harper, our advisory board chair, will be hosting a cafe conversation and tackling some of those opportunities and challenges that we're facing as change leaders in our community. We'd love for our members to join that. The first one's open to everyone, so if you're thinking about joining, come along, because we have these monthly member connects where our members choose the topics that we tackle, and we have our first Tuesday of the month as well. So there's 2 great opportunities every month to be joining nationally, which really means that your membership is going to be great, because if you can't make my Thursday ones, then there's the Tuesday ones with Wendy and vice versa, but they will have slightly different nuances. The Change Leaders Cafe conversation is going to be really looking at the inner development capacities that are tied to the UN sustainability goals around agency and self-development, because we really want to align Business Women Australia with that, and we want all our organisations and women who are running businesses or in management roles in enterprise or government, or the professions, to be looking at how we can incorporate more of these kind of alignments around sustainability and self capacity and leadership that aligns with those IDGs. So we're learning with Wendy's guidance. Online group coaching, I think, is that officially our last or our second last one? But I think we've actually conjured up the idea of keeping you going with us, because we want to start practicing more of those tools, Kerry. So I don't know if we're going to let you off on the 8th of October. We might have to book a few more dates in. And if
we are having a bit of
fun for learning and practicing online tools, we're going to be creating this kind of almost like experimental tools. Let's practice on each other, have a theme, practice using digital whiteboards, all these polls, all these different things that we've got that we can use. So anyone who wants to be a part of that, reach out and let Kerry know. Yeah. Cheese and Chats back at Inspiration Space. Thanks, Vida. Our topic on the 16th of October is the art of connection and belonging. That one's fully booked. So anyone who wants to come along to the Inspiration Cheese and Chats at Vida's, book in for the 5th of November. There's already a wait list for the 16th of October, I think. And Sydney are actually hosting an executive roundtable, wellbeing and influence, for mainly brand leaders and chief marketing officer type people. But if that's an area of interest to you, you might enjoy that roundtable as well with Ronnie and Wendy. And then on the 11th of November, we're back with a mastermind on leadership, mindfulness and conscious communication. That's online. And Vida will be hosting that one and giving us some tools around conversation parameters from a conscious leadership point of view. Is that right, Vida? Yep. Anyone who's interested in what that might look like, feel free to reach out to Vida. We're all on LinkedIn. We're all on the directory. We would love for you to connect with us and have a chat to us if you're new to BWA. And these are the values that bring our women from diverse backgrounds, diverse industries, sectors and states together, is this beautiful connectedness around being open-minded and being collaborative and consciously working on, self-awareness as self-leadership, as much as is learning and supporting others through their growth and their leadership, and creating really cohesive and safe work environments. So in the chat, please introduce yourself, where you're located, maybe why you came today. That would be a great place to start. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to hand over to Kerry, because Kerry and I got talking. This is the sort of when it was suggested that that we tackle this topic of leadership. Am I stop sharing? Good. When we tackle the topic of stereotypes and unconscious bias, I think which one of our members suggested we did, which was been a great idea as a topic. I looked at it from the point of view of, have I got unconscious biases? And I thought, well, I don't think I have. And some of you would have got my email around that tool that one of my kids told me about. They're studying psych. And I did the tool because they're non-binary, and we're big rainbow flag flyers. And I thought, well, I'll do the tool that tests unconscious bias about sexuality, because I thought I'd be pretty high on that. I didn't think I had any bias, but it came up that I do. And I thought, wow, I have to be so aware of that. And then I was chatting to Kerry about it, and I said, what do you teach in this stuff around unconscious bias? And she was talking about it from the experience of having, stereotypes and the impact of stereotypes and bias on self and on self stories and things. So I'm going to hand over to Kerry to kickstart the conversation, and we'll take it from there. How does that sound?
Brilliant. Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, so it was so interesting when Lynn and I started talking, and we're like, oh my gosh, and Lynn saying, well, I'm really exploring what my biases might be. And I was talking in terms of when I'm in training, often say to people, all right, so we need to be self-aware and know what biases we're bringing into conversations, into workplaces. And so many people go, oh, well, I don't think I have biases. Like I'm pretty good. And it's like, well, yeah, you're pretty far up there on that evolution if you don't, because all of us have biases because we all come from a different life journey. So we have different experiences and we bring that with us. So Lynn started looking at how do we bring up our awareness of our own. And so I think that's where we should start. And then I'd like to switch it, as Lynn said, because I like to focus in workshops that I do on helping people get past the stuck, where we start creating ourselves as victims if somebody's being biased against us. And then we start undermining ourselves and really starting to think about, how can I move forward more effectively, even though I know that's there, and some of the conversations that need to happen. So that's where the sort of two-sided conversation is going to go today, and it's going to be led by you. So I guess first thing, and it might be nice to jump into some breakout rooms, Lynn, to get, because we're quite a big group, to have some conversation about how do you bring your self-awareness up? How do you identify what biases you carry at the moment? So let's focus inward. What is it that you might have had an experience? And I can share one to give you a bit of a platform. I do, as I say, I'm a trainer. So I have some people in some of the groups I go that I see on a fairly regular basis. And there's a gentleman in there, and he pushes my buttons so hard. And he's just, I just go in there, and for the first time I met him, and then I walked out going, what was that? And then so next time I walk in there, I'm thinking this, like I'm sort of a bit on the defensive. And so I've had to stop myself, because I am working with this gentleman, to stop and go, right, Kerry, I am literally thinking about him in a different fashion than I am everyone else in the room. And it's not fair. And it's about me resetting myself for when I go in there to say, new day, could be a new outcome. How am I going to face this? Or how am I going to walk in there and be inclusive and bring that? And as I do that, I see this change in our relationship, and where it was, us pushing against each other all the time, we've now created this really healthy disagreement. We don't see eye to eye, and we will never see eye to eye. And we've found a way that we can move forward together and both voice what it is that we're thinking, but agreeing to disagree. And that's so much better than me going in and trying to close him down because I don't agree with what he has to say. So finding our own biases is really important. So in your breakout room, how do you identify what your biases are? And if you're comfortable, share one or two that you have found, or an experience where you've identified a bias and what you've done to move past it. Does that make sense? Everybody, okay. So I don't know, Lynn, let's get groups of maybe, how many of us? Three or four in a room, and let's have 10 minutes of robust sharing of what's that, and then come out and we can share just something from each of the groups. So identify something that as a group you'd like to feed back to us. So let's find some breakout.
And how much time should we have in the group, Kerry?
Let's go 10 minutes, I reckon. Get in
and
there.
I just realised we forgot to do a grounding. Sorry, guys, we're just flying straight in because that's what we do. We might have a grounding when we leave to create the third space between this and the next one. Okay, Vita?
Yes.
Okay, I'll open the rooms. Some
right.
of you I can see haven't got your videos on, and you might be on mute. So I'll just, if you can't join a room, I've made them fairly big rooms anyway, so that should work. Hang on, let me just recreate again into.
You got 4 rooms with 3 or 4 in each. I can hit the button if you're happy with that.
I have no idea how to get to the room, lady. So
you will get an invite in a moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
How long
Just
did you say?
click on join. 10 minutes. Let's go 10 minutes.
Okay.
Thanks,
Siri.
everyone
Set the
gets an
alarm for 10
opportunity
minutes
to
time.
share.
Excellent. Welcome back, everybody. Lots of conversations. Amazing conversations. So over to you, Kerry.
Oh, sorry, I've just got things popping up on my screen. So let's just hear from some of the groups. What are some of the ways that we are finding what our biases might be, and how do we identify, for starters? So just throw a hand up because we can see everybody on screen when we haven't got slides. What was the conversation? How can you identify your own bias? Yeah, go, Stacey. Oh, mute.
I must put myself on mute instead of taking it off. Right. So one of the things that I've worked on through self-awareness is your first thought is what you're conditioned to think. Your second thought is the one that's really you. So paying attention to that first thought and then overlaying it with that second thought that's gone, okay, that's my bias. This is who I really am.
Love that. Love that. Who else has got something to add into there? How do we identify it? How can we know more about ourselves? Oh, sorry, Sigra. I can see a hand.
Hey, Gary. Hey, everyone. Thank you for the invite today. Lynn, it was fascinating to hear the conversations in our group, because it's really started with, it's unconscious. How do you even identify, right? So Johari window was mentioned, people's experience where they become self-aware that when is it that they feel triggered, right, in the presence of someone, or when is it that they feel they shut down in presence of someone. So that's when you're doing it over a time, you realize that this is not me, right? That changed. So yeah, discussion was around that. And for me personally, as I have been very fortunate to work across different regions globally, I realized that my biases were based on the stereotypes I had heard about or seen in the media. But when you start living in a place, you realize that it really boils down to the individual. So, yeah.
I love that, Sigra. And I second that. I lived in the States for 6 years and I went kicking and screaming. Like my bias that, the people that I'd come across that were really brash when I traveled, And then I got there and they were the most beautiful people. And I was like, Carrie, that was so bad. But that's what I did. I went over thinking, oh, this is going to be tough. And it really wasn't when I just let people be and got curious about who they were as an individual rather than plating the whole lot as loud traveling Americans.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Like to share what you're doing in terms of getting that self-awareness. I know, Kath, that you've got a million ways because you teach so many ways of us finding that. Come on, share the wisdom.
I still need to learn them myself, and I think I was actually sharing with my group that because I'm speaking in the States, similar thing, you know, at the moment, there's lots of triggers potentially, and because I am probably going to have a very, very big audience of very diverse views, my coach was fantastic in just saying, you know, the way to overcome that bias or that trigger when someone asks a question or challenges you, because I could get a lot of challenges, is to just make sure, am I making this person feel heard and seen? And I really like, and that's just going to be top of mind. And just when I notice those triggers, just take a breath and just notice if I'm allowing that person to be heard and seen for who they are.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, we were talking in my group with Sonia and Holly and Una that we can check in with those around us as well. Like sometimes people can tell you what your body language is saying when you're not trying to say it. And by asking and being open to how did that go, and also we are talking about that reflective space of stopping to think about it when we have those thoughts or we do something and go, whoa, where did that come from? To really stop and think about why that has happened and what's led us to that point. We were also talking in our group in terms of the pace. So if people can even, things like that, where if I'm a fast-paced person, I'm working with somebody who's more thoughtful and cautious, that sometimes that even turns into a bias for me where I'm like, oh my God, and to stop and think, there's different ways of looking at it. And so it's really, for me, it comes down to growth. It comes down to what has that person got to teach me, whoever they are. And it's been, it's a work in progress, as you said. I by no means am a authority on this, but it is something that I spend a lot of time on. And that's for me is where I know that I'm getting better. There's a long way to go, but it is about stopping to think and turning up, as Stacey said, as the people we want to be, not as our knee-jerk reactions, and giving ourselves some time in there to steady the ship. But I'm writing down, Stacey, I've written down, it's that thirst and the overlay. I love it. It's so true. How we want to be and how we are comes down to self-awareness for me and understanding ourselves. And the more we can go down that path and understand what there are. The other thing for me is triggers and glimmers, right? So there are things that we go automatically to a negative thought process on, but there's equally things that we go glimmer, oh my gosh, that's fantastic. And there's all sorts of unbiased, unconscious bias in there where we take something, the halo effect. There's so many different things out there of halo or horns, that person's done something bad, so I'm just expecting bad. Or that person's been gorgeous to me in the past, so I expect that. So I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on how can we check ourselves? What are the things we can do in a day-to-day that help us identify, like when we've identified, help us move on? What can we do? I'm all about what you can do. You might get that as we go through. What are the things that we can actually do? Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah, we had a really interesting discussion in our group. And I notice with my triggers that I sometimes have a bodily reaction. So I teach myself to take a breath and, because it's get onto that second thought. And it can be things like somebody's accent or their perceived group, my bias about what their perceived group is. And I've actually found the best way is to check in with that other person. Never, and I have to stop myself from assuming, and I rush to, judgments and assumption really, really quickly. So I check in with that other person, how did that land for them? Or, if I see someone looking like a deer in the headlights, I stop and give them space. I have to stop and not expect them to engage, because I'm a bit like you. I think I talk quite fast and my ideas are, racing around, and I have to actually stop. Stop and think, what's happened here? And I've been guilty of the halo effect as well, assuming because somebody's got a deep understanding of something, they'll understand this other context, but they don't.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Lisa.
I just wanted to share that, Kerry, you brought out one of mine that I didn't even know existed, because I grew up, my mum and my auntie owned a restaurant, and it was always the waitresses, the ones you see running about, that do nothing. Like do you know what I mean? But that is my bias. Now I'm the opposite to you. If I was working with you, you'd be there thinking she's going slow and doing nothing. And I'd be sitting there going, look at her, all speed and no content. But when you said it, I thought, yeah, I'm the other way around, because I've worked at so many places where the people that in that fast-paced environment that look busy are usually the ones, like, they've dumped their crockery where they shouldn't, and then you can't put and you just go, oh no, she's a speedonomic. Oh God, this is going to be a hardship. And then when you said that, I thought, oh, it never crossed my mind people were going, can you speed up?
Yeah, I love that, Lisa.
So
And
yeah,
that's why I
and
love.
my other one is that I do is I'm obviously very English, but what people don't know is that I'm half Welsh. And I've learned through, because I do keynotes, talking to the aunties, people always go, what, do you have so much in common with the aunties? But we talk lost language. And when I'm with someone and, you're feeling that, I think to myself, I try and think to myself, they don't know I'm half Welsh, which is my way of saying, I only know this minute of this person. Because people will look at me and think, what on earth would you know about Aboriginals feeling the loss of their language? But I do, but you wouldn't expect it. So I try, sometimes you get triggered so hard you just think I hate you. But most of the time I try and think that all people know about me is my accent and what they see. And I'm seeing that person for that minute and everything. And it was like what Stacey said, I can't remember how she worded it, but that first reaction is what I'm taught. And then I suppose my saying they don't know I'm Welsh is sort of a question to myself to say, step back. You don't know anything about these people, is what I'm saying by saying that. You don't know anything. I don't know what their morning's been like. So that's, but more, I just wanted to share that, talk about being in a thing about unconscious bias and
Yeah, and we all do that. And like there's a lot of the behavioral models and thinking models, your HBDIs and your DISCs and things. And it's sort of, we get these quadrants. But the beauty is that, somebody said to me, Carrie, if you're doing something and you're in, heavily sit in one quadrant, we all have everything. But if you sit there, then 3/4 of the people you cross think differently to you or behave differently to you. And that was, for me, it was that, holy cow, I'm annoying so many people. And how can I make that, adjustment along the way when I'm dealing with different people to hear them out and to learn? And one of the things I always think is I'm one of those people, this is odd for some, but I love to go to a funeral because I learn so much about people. And every time I go to that, I think, why didn't I know that person? And it really makes me get curious about what anybody I meet, because we all have such fabulous stories out there that we don't get to share. Vida, jump on in.
I think, like, for me, being self-aware is a lot more than the moment. It's a practice that has to occur all the time. Like, but the first thing in the morning before I get out of bed, it's like, how do I want to show up today? Oh, right now, it's I want to listen more, I wanna be more present, more grounded, more like really open and present to what's happening in each moment. And if I am not doing it all the time, then I slip back into old patterns. So I think it's a practice of being this way. It's not just a moment or a situation.
Yeah, totally agree. Beautiful. It is. It's opening ourselves to what can we learn from people, and to actually go and seek. For me, it's, you know, I love now, and I think that's why I love what I do, is that I get to meet so many people, and I get to go, oh, tell me how you see this. And you just learn so much from people, from being curious and parking the judgment and go, what have you got that you can teach me here? And it's just amazing. People are amazing. That's how I see it. Cool. Anybody else got anything in there they'd like to share before we sort of move on to some of the another view of these stereotypes or biases? Yeah, go, Rona.
Yeah, ours was just a little bit about the generational bias. So with me at the moment, we've got 3 generations: my parents, myself, and my daughter, and her 2 little kids, 2 and 4. And, you know, a lot of ours is very, there's a lot of women around in our environment, and we're all very capable women. But the funny thing about us all is we still live in that world where there are certain things that a man does, like they drive the car, or they do the ones that do the 4-wheel driving. And we were having this conversation. My daughter is a psychologist, and we're just driving down the track, and we're coming up to a bit of a bit which is going to be a bit tricky, and it's sort of like, oh, probably just do that when we've got the men around. And like, why do we automatically think that they can do anything more special than that? But we've been conditioned along that in those generations. And on my property, I've got a little car that the kids can drive, and the 4-year-old's a boy and the 2-year-old's a girl. And I bought the little car for the 2-year-old for her birthday, right? But the 4-year-old always gets in and drives it, and here's the man, and he still has his arm on the side and hangs out the back and reverses back. But this is the whole thing, isn't it? You know, he's surrounded by women, but somehow we still give him the lead. And that I have to often say, no, Summer gets to drive now. You know, she gets the chance to do it. And to change that whole generational bias, I see it everywhere in my life at the moment, just the way we've been conditioned. You know, men drive the boats, and, you know, in local government, I work with local governments, and local government's still struggling a lot to get women in the higher levels of the key positions. We're getting better at it. And it's always, we always refer to it as him, the executive, you do him, and it's just crazy. And I run a business, there's 9 of us and we're all women, but I still do it. I still do it. So.
Yeah, I love that. But for me, that talking about the language there, Rona, because we do use different language that then helps build those stereotypes and the biases that are around us. And we do it because we've always, we've been conditioned on our way through. And it comes to Vida's point that we need to be conscious and thinking about what it is we want to do, and what changes we want to make, and who do we want to include. And then we need to change the language. For mine, I feel like I want to make sure that I stand up when I see something that's there to say, hang on a minute, what else, how else could we view this? Or why can't my daughter step in and do that as opposed to my son? But we need those conversations to happen. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Jennifer.
I think, Kerry, I was going to say that it actually starts with the motivation to have that. I feel like I've got an echo, but anyway, yeah. So it's actually what is we have to start with a motivation to actually look at that and look at our biases, and whether that's something that we've experienced around not being heard or seen, or whether it's an experience that we've had in, we talk. I think we mentioned as well. There's the mention of we were most of the
Oh, you're breaking up, Sonia.
women in the room were something that. Am I breaking up? Sorry.
You're back again.
Oh, okay. The internet connection is unstable, it's telling me. It's probably reflecting. Anyway, moving on from that. But I think it's, there's a thing around, that self-awareness piece only starts when you feel motivated to actually look at yourself and what does it take to actually do that. Because I think in this room we've got, a lot of very aware, we're all very self-aware, but there's it's then sort of building out a motivation in someone else to understand what the reward is of actually looking at it from another person's perspective. And I don't mean the monetary reward, but other rewards, that connection piece, with other people. Anyway, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's about growth, and it's about how we go there. Jennifer, you had something to add.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it's all our responsibility also to help other people with their biases. And so I have a team building company, and I have 2 of my staff use wheelchairs, which you would think is quite difficult if they're doing like an amazing race in the city. And my business partner has had a big background in disability services. So when these 2 people came to work with us, they had a connection to us already. So they didn't apply for the job. And when I first met this, the lady that works with us, I was saying to her, as I got to know her better, I was saying, how do we get people more aware of the capabilities of people in wheelchairs? And she said, just the fact that they are seeing me in the city running these sort of things is enough sometimes. And it was really interesting because when I met her, and this is my own biases as well, I was like, how's she going to be with this? What are we going to, I check the paths, I make sure that she can get around, all of that, so her battery's charged and things. Then I read her LinkedIn profile and I was absolutely overwhelmed. She's a Paralympian. She's done made all these changes through Parliament. And I was like, if I had read her bio before I met her, I would have had a completely different bias, because I would have been thinking, how am I going to keep up with this person? So it's really interesting, like you say, knowing people's stories makes such a difference. She travels around the world talking about spina bifida and giving keynote speeches. And, even for myself, as much as I knew a little bit about her, my bias was still the wheelchair, even though what I was doing was, gainful employment and getting, I was sort of doing it from one reason, and then there was so many more layers to it. So I think we can take on our responsibility and do what we can, but it's a very big issue. But yeah, it's on all of us to make sure that we are breaking down some of those barriers for other people as well.
Totally agree. I remember meeting a grandmother when I was backpacking some time ago now, but she had been in India and had hung her arm out of a train and lost her arm a decade earlier. She was 85 with a backpack, with one arm, and we were talking to her on this train, and I remember her telling me how her family were trying to wrap her up in cotton wool, and they're like, Mum, you can't travel, Mum, you can't. And people kept putting limitations on her because they thought that she couldn't. And she said, well, buggered a lot of them. I'm going, I've booked and there she was, just traveling and being. And I feel like that's the joy of getting where we understand that we don't know who anybody else is. And there is just so much beauty in people out there and power and so much to learn and think, wow, that is amazing. You know, I think you find people every day that are amazing, and to just let people know. And one of the things I find when I'm working with groups, people don't know how amazing they are. People don't stop to go, hey, I've got this. And that's part of, you know, why I do what I do, to help people find what their thing is and to own it and go, yeah, I'm pretty awesome, and be able to own that and move on and not put it under there. Let people know what where we're at and who we are. So awesome. All right, so let's take a bit of a left turn, because one of the things I've come across, and I'm really interested to hear what you think, is, has anybody heard of the thing called a ladder of inference? Yeah, got a couple of nods. Yeah. So that for me plays out here, because I'm thinking of an example. What it is that we have a situation and we create a story for ourselves about what this situation is. So I'm going to share it in terms of, you know, when I came back from being on maternity leave, and I came in and I had a new manager there, and this young woman said to me, Kerry, you can't do this job because you're a mother. Was a long time ago. She wouldn't do it now. But I remember thinking, oh my God, what? And then we had a couple of interactions, but then I went searching, because I had made this story that she was a wicked witch, that she was a, you know, uppity so-and-so. And I then went looking for how I could substantiate that story. I made assumptions of what she was trying to do. I created a space where I became the victim. And I started losing my oomph and my ability to you know, stand up for myself. And I became this, you know, oh my God, I'm so hard done by, and she's such a coward, I don't know what to do, and misery bag. And I went home and I was miserable to the family, and it just kept building. But that's what we do in unconscious situations, is we create something, and if we don't get curious and say, what else can be true here, we can go down a spiral. So for me, one of the things I'd really like to get from you as a group is, how do we move forward when we feel like people are doing the wrong thing by us, their bias towards us, that we become this, in this space where people are not hearing us, are not respecting us for whatever their reasoning is? What is it we can do to keep ourselves moving forward and creating positive outcomes for self and others? So would you like to go back into breakout rooms in small group to have a bit of a in-depth there? That might be easier, or do you want to do it in a group? Group, hands up. Let's a bit of half and half. All right, let's go for a short breakout room so that you can start the conversation. Then we'll bring it back and do that. So I'll just, oh, look at Lynn's gone. She's got it all happening. Excellent. So, oh, how are we going for time? Yeah, let's go 8 minutes. Well, we were certainly having a great conversation, but let me throw it out to the other groups. Who's got something to share that came from that conversation? Hands up so we can see.
I'm gonna jump in. Sorry, I just feel everyone needs to hear what Vita said to us because it's a gem. So what she was saying is, if she's in it comes up against someone else's bias, because we all sort of thought, well, what do we do in that moment? Do we, you know, because we thinking, do we give up? Do we walk away? And she said she hears them, and no matter what they say, because nothing they say is going to change who she fundamentally is. She says thank you, and genuinely means thank you. And then, you know, just that empowered sort of response, and then it's up to them to just to react, or, you know, to share their view.
Yeah, it's standing ground and owning what we bring and who we are, and staying firm for ourselves. Yeah. What else came up in the conversations? How do we do it? What was shared?
Well, in our group, we sort of were saying you've got to advocate for yourself, speaking up, sharing stories. Like sometimes we hit those roadblocks and we are subjected to bias. And I think we just need to stand up. I shared a story that obviously I help local governments in finance. I don't have an accounting degree. I've been 23 years in local government, and I started at the customer service and worked my way right up to CEO level. So I go in there and I train people, and I find I'm often first said, oh, and so where did you train? Where did you get your accounting degree? And I thought, I don't have an accounting degree. And straight away it goes downhill really fast. And I find that I just share my story about how it all began and, why I'm so passionate about doing the things I'm doing. And then I sort of kind of overcome their bias. Once they've worked with me, they forget about all of that, But likewise, I have a bias to people who are accountants. So straight away I go, oh, don't need an accounting degree in local government to do what you're doing because they don't do tax. And so as soon as I hear that this person I'm going to train is an accountant, I go, oh my God, my life's going to be, disaster. But, I have to get over that as well. But I know that when I first meet that person, I need to probably engage and share my story that I win them over. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Who else would like to jump in there? Share your experience. One of the things that I use a lot when I'm working with people is the Q tip, which is quit taking it personally. And it's about when people are biased towards us for whatever reason is, it's often as for us that it's unconscious. They're not necessarily aware of what they're doing. But if we can just let them be, and I love what Vida obviously shared, and I'm so in there with that it's about us understanding what we bring to the table, and it's about us having confidence. And one of our group talked about having your tribe, having people that have got your back, that you can go if you're starting to question yourself or feel a little knocked around, that there's somebody who you can lean in on. And that's why I love here being with BWA, because that's what we do here. We hear people and we learn how to go about things in different ways, or how we can shift that thought. But for me, when I looked at this topic coming in, as I said, I've been there where I've been that victim, and I never want to go there. I so don't want to be there. And that's, I guess, in a way, often really good things come from bad things. That was one of the reasons where I, has driven me to what I do now, because I don't want people to be stuck, and I want people to be able to say, this is what I'm good at, this is what I can do. But it's about us, and it is that checking one situation is one situation, and being kind to ourselves and not stacking what's going on. So it's and for those who haven't worked with me, I look at things from three things. And I'm just going to share that with you, because I look at the support, and that is having those people around you who can support you and who can say, hey, Sonia, you're freaking amazing, and are going to give you the support and that acknowledgement. But then there's the challenge, is that second step for me. And that's where somebody can say, hey, do you realize that you just rolled your eyes at Joe Blow here? What's that about? And that can, give us feedback and let us understand what we're doing if it's not serving us well. So there's that sort of challenge. And then it's the champion, and it's about, hey, you handled that beautifully, and letting people know when things, when they're doing amazing things, and to be cheerleaders for those around you. And again, that's what I find here. But where are we? We're probably getting close to having a bit of a round. table to come back to, yeah, Kath, go.
Sorry, can I just say, I'm sorry I've got to drop off. I've got a 2 o'clock, but I will drop the offer. If anyone does want to, who hasn't done any NLP or anything like that, I'll put the codes in the chat room. And so sorry I've got to drop off early, but if anyone is interested, just go to the Fire Up Coaching website and or contact me directly.
Beautiful. Thanks, Kath. Oh, you're talking, Lynn. Are you talking to us? No.
Yeah, I am. We'll drop it into the spiel following up with everyone too, Kath, in case
Thanks.
who wants to do your programs coming up. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, lovelies. Bye.
Okay, bye. So we've got just like 15 minutes. So why don't we just have a thought just for a moment? What's something that you've learned from somebody in the group or something that's stuck with you that you can take away that can help in terms of this bias and being stereotyped? So what we'll do is I'll nominate somebody and then you nominate somebody else and we'll just keep it going like that. So can I start with you, Jennifer?
Okay, so I've got notes here from today. Firstly, it's not just me, so that makes me feel better that I'm not the only one with the stories in my head. And I have been known to have an argument with somebody without them even knowing we were having the argument. And when I told them, you know, we argued all day yesterday, they thought it was hysterical. And I was like, oh, we did. And this is what you said. And this is what I said. But it was all in my head. So a couple of my notes. I love the Q-tip. I think that is great. The quit taking it personally. And, you know, I really like that one. Yeah. And the other one is the support and having a champion. So I always go back to everybody needs a champion. And I think that was great. So it was nice to hear everybody's ideas. And yeah, I've got a whole page of notes, but that's just a few of my top ones. And of course, Vita, your thank you. I've got that circled that I'm going to try that. And yeah, and believe it as well. So part of it is not just saying thank you, but also appreciating it. So now I'm going to, Sonia, I'll flick over to you.
Okay. So I shared earlier that I thought the thank you was a beautiful way of either opening or closing the conversation and standing in the conversation. I get a lot out of these conversations because it makes me more self-aware about what I'm thinking and how I think about things. And I mean, I'm constantly trying to work towards being better at facing in and leaning into people and hearing them. And I love that my tribe and all of you do this for me when when I throw something out there and I get someone going, hey, that's a bit of a bias. And, you know, I really appreciate that. So keep on doing it for me. Thank you.
All right, do you want to pass to someone, Sonia, or I'll joke? Sada, go.
Okay.
Hi. I learned a lot. I've got a back page of notes as well, like Sonia. I loved the what else can be true here, because I'm often having difficult conversations with people who don't want to have them, but by the end they're usually champions. No, lots. And I still love the quit taking it personally. I say that to myself sometimes, but it's not always easy.
No.
Yeah.
Certainly it's not. Who do you want to pass to?
I'm going to pass to Rona.
Thank you. Yeah. It was great to be a part of the discussions, everybody. For me, my take home is like, well, I'm not unusual, just like the rest of you. And it's always nice to know that all the things that you've all been saying, I feel it or I've heard it. But the takeaway for me is like, you are the person that's going to drive the change. You have to look at yourself, keep looking at yourself, and just making those little small wins, those slight changes every week. You know, just don't beat yourself up. Know that it probably is ingrained, but you can do little steps to make the change. Yeah, so that's my takeaway from today.
Okay. Charlie.
Hello. Totally agree with Rona. Don't beat yourself up. Like when you face bias, you're not alone. And now you know where to get support from. I'm so glad like today I meet with so many of the other like very outstanding women here, knowing that I'm not alone, knowing that like women from like different ages, like different culture, they're all facing the same difficulties. And now we know where to get support from and just, you know, advocate yourself, be confident, and don't let other people beat you up.
Yeah,
That's
don't let them
that's my
put
take.
out your light.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Let me nominate Stacey.
Thank you. So one of the conversations we had was Sada said that she was triggered by a particular accent. We discovered I'm actually triggered by the same accent. So it's quite interesting to go, oh, actually, that's a bias that I've got that I really wasn't conscious of until somebody else said that they were triggered by the same thing, and I went, oh yeah, okay, that's brought something else to my attention. So I guess it's listening to other people's biases and then reflecting on yourself to say, does that ring true with you or not? And is that then something you should be aware of? And for me, I was triggered by that as well. And I've reflected that, okay, that's now a bias that I need to be aware of.
Beautiful.
So from here, I'll nominate Vida.
I just love this because I get such a strong sense of belonging, and what has already been said, it's like, you know, it's the full human experience bubbling up here between us, and it validates me that I'm okay just being here. So thank you all. That's really something. I think for me, the main thing that is coming up is being aware of when I'm biased to others. Like I'm quite aware when someone's biased to me, but I'm not as aware when I'm the one that's putting the bias on somebody else. And I think it's really about me having the intention to be aware of that and really focusing on like making it a part of my priorities for the day, the week, the month, is really noticing my biasing and noticing what's true and what's not true within here. So thank you all. Beautiful.
Passing to, let's go, Lisa. You're next on my screen.
Hi, my two main things were, one, what I said to you, Kerry, to actually have one of your biases slap you in the face when someone's talking. Like literally, I was like, to me, people who work really fast don't get work done. It wasn't a bias, it was a fact in my head. And then when you were talking about the opposite, because I'm slow and thoughtful, I was like, no, that's just a bias. I obviously worked with people that worked very fast and very uselessly, but that doesn't mean that everyone. And the other one for me, which, thank you, Stacey, is going to be a game changer, is I've even started thinking in my head, don't go on the first impression. Like literally take that breath and go, okay, that was my bias. That was what I'm conditioned to think. Now let's get to know this person and move away from that. Not ready to fight, but almost ready to resist. Like that to me, I think is going to be the game changer going forward.
Beautiful.
Passing to Gatti.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just jumping in there.
I feel like the discussions that we've had today have been so eye-opening. It's never been a topic that I've ever reflected on. So to hear so many different perspectives have been amazing. I think what Vida articulated really well about how I've always felt like the victim, but never really seen it where I've put a bias in someone else. That's something I've never reflected on. So I found that really interesting. And I feel like it's taught me, and how we've all discussed, to know someone's story before you assume anything. I think I'm going to take that and put that in my toolbox after this conversation. But that's one thing I've learned about me putting a bias in someone else. but when someone else puts a bias on me, Charlie was talking about this in our discussion, but it was leading by example. It's how we would showcase what we'd expect by actually doing that, so someone else in our community can mirror that behavior. And I found that really, really eye-opening, because I would have not thought about it like that or in that perspective. But that's what I've taken away from today's discussions.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing. And Sigra.
Thank you, everyone. I felt that it was quite a warm welcome, considering I've recently moved to Australia. And yes, Kerry, thanks for also making me very comfortable. I have a loud, booming voice naturally, so having that energy in the room really helps. I would say, if I had to put that, a lot has been said about Q-tip, how we recognize our biases, or when their bias is acting against us, and how to manage them, which has been phenomenal. Language was a bit that we discussed upon, Rona mentioned. And to me, it's such a powerful factor. The words we use, right, frame our own mind. They put a picture in everybody else's head. So, and coming back to Lynn, when you started the conversation, you said about self-capacity or self-agency, conscious parameters. Those are the words which were used, right? So really, how do we make sure that when it comes to our own awareness and conscious parameters, language is part of that parameter, to shape and build a more equitable world all around. So for me, I think I would like to work towards that continuously. And yeah, thank you so much for welcoming me today.
Beautiful. Thanks, Sigra. So I'll just say my thank yous for you sharing and being so open. And I learn a lot, and I love these rooms, because like everybody here, I always walk out with more than I walked in with, and that's a pretty amazing thing. So a big thank you for me, and I'm going to pass to Lynn for her reflections and to see us out.
Well, thanks, Kerry, and thank you so much for stepping in and facilitating today. It's just I've got a few things I'm taking away from interesting Rona's discussion around who drives, because I was taking great offence to Reese letting Ronnie, my daughter, drive all the time, and I actually am going to cut him some slack, because that's obviously a very equitable arrangement, and it's equality, and here I am, this bastion of femininity, and I had a real problem with it. So she always does the long drive. She's so good on her, and often in his car, or she drives her car, and I've thought, so I had that bias going on there. I was thinking about, it's interesting how hearing the stories of everyone has actually made me think about my own biases much more widely. These conversations are so important, and we're never too old to learn. Mum was quite a racist person. She had a very sort of closeted life, and she didn't know a lot of people from other countries and hadn't travelled much. And when in her last sort of couple of years, she was in care, and all her carers were people from other countries. And so she got me to bring in an atlas, a book from the school, from the kids' schools, because she was really interested in everyone's lives back at home, and she was making friends from with her carers, and our whole family were like stunned by this change. And we realized that if people live in little bubbles and don't get to meet other people, make friendships with other people from all forms of life, and different, backgrounds and diverse life choices and views, then these biases actually become, sort of stereotypes that then stop them and build fear or judgment. And at 98, her best friends were multiple colourful people, and she said, "Oh, wait till you meet these two. They're absolute hoots. These two girls got married last weekend." And so her whole world was opened up to the beautiful richness of people, and people from Burma, and that all these wonderful people stopped me when she died and said, "What a beautiful woman your mother was." She was so gracious and accepting of everyone. And I said to them, It was you that brought that out in my mum. Your love and your care and your time that you took to make a friend of my mum, because she wasn't always like that. And we got to see her being this extraordinary, open-minded woman at the very end of her life. So, you know, if she can do it, we can all do it. And I'm really excited about these conversations because I've learnt so much today. So thank you so much for sharing this with us and being here and contributing, you know, from such an honest and vulnerable place. So it really means a lot. Thanks, ladies. And for those of you who are guests, we'd love for you to join as a Connector member. We have these, as I said, every month for our members. And we have now the option of the first Tuesday of every month for the Change Leaders Cafe conversations as well. And of course, there's events. And if you're in an area where there's not enough events, well, let's look at what we can do and have a pop-up event where you guys are and you guys can host it and we'll help promote it. So, yeah, love you guys. Thank you. And have a beautiful weekend when you get there.
Thank you very much for
Yes.
letting me
Thanks,
join.
everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely to see everyone. Have a
Thanks,
great
Charlie,
afternoon.
then. See ya.
Bye.
Gorgeous. Thanks, guys.